What's up?
Hello, how are you?
How's it going?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Just 1 second here. I'm just doing one last minute check of something. Come on. Won't this computer ever do what I tell it to do? There it is. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Good. All right. Marcel the Shell with shoes on will be here Friday.
Okay. I thought you were doing some sort of vocal warm-up, but it's a movie.
It's got to be something.
I gotcha. I thought you were doing a vocal warm-up for a second.
Sorry?
I thought you were doing a vocal warm-up. Can you hear me very well, or is my microphone not picking up very good? Let's see here. Why isn't this sounding good?
Not sounding good on your end?
Sounds fine, but can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine now. I just had to close a few tabs. It says low system services resources on my end.
When I was trying to replay my own sound in my head, if I was mumbling enough, I couldn't get it to come back. So if you can't hear me, let me know, because I may be having an issue too.
All right.
All right. Okay. Are you ready then?
I think so.
Then I will get the show started. Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at IHateCritics.net, Everyone's a Critic Podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is CriticsPod. Listen to the show at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. And if you rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. We'll read your review on the air, and we'll give you some 4K Blu-rays that some of the studios have given us. We're also live on YouTube the occasional Monday night. Subscribe to the show on YouTube, and then click on the bell to get notified when we are live. Also check our social media for that as well. We post it before we go live every week. Patreon.com/criticspod is the best way to help support the podcast. And then TeePublic, if you go to IHateCritics.net and click on the TeePublic link, you can get some of our podcast merch. All right.
Before we get into the movies, I don't know if you heard, but Paul Sorvino passed away. One of the stars, of course, of Goodfellas, and just a beloved actor for numerous different roles. Just a supporting guy who pretty much in those later years would just take any role offered to him. He made a lot of movies. I don't have his entire resume in front of me, but of course everybody remembers him in Goodfellas, and I mean that movie's not the same without him, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And he's also Mira Sorvino's father.
Yeah,
everybody knows as well. But yeah, just he's 83, so
83. Yeah.
It's a bummer, but it's he lived a good life, and like you said, Goodfellas is much better because he's in it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else before we get started on the movies this week?
Vince McMahon retired, the head of WWE Films, obviously stepping aside. So that's the movie. That's the movie thing to bring it together.
Yes. He retired. That's what happened.
Yeah.
He wasn't pushed out at all. Yeah, that's a weird one.
I don't know what this means for the Marine 8, but it might get pushed back now because he's gone. I'm not sure though.
How many of those have you actually watched?
I think I've seen 2 of them. I think I saw the first one, obviously, with John Cena, and then I saw one with The Miz. I never saw the one with Randy Orton. That one, I was even shocked to know that existed.
I didn't know that existed till just now.
Yeah, he's in number 2 or number 3, one of them. And then The Miz takes it from like 3 on, I guess, and he's been the star since then. Becky Lynch was in one. Shawn Michaels was in one.
Yeah, I think a lot of the wrestlers were in it. I think Naomi was in one.
Very well could have been, yeah.
And I only know that from watching Total Divas back in the day. It's weird. I was thinking about this because I try to watch such high quality movies for the podcast, and we keep feeding ourselves, higher level material the more we do this. When I want to watch something for fun, I just want to watch trash. It is ridiculous. Like it's like, what do they say? Janitor's homes are the dirtiest. Like, I don't even want to watch anything of substance on my own anymore. It's just like, I want to watch Impractical Jokers over and over again, or, something like that, or wrestling.
Yeah. I watch disturbing true crime videos on YouTube.
I do rewatch The Last Dance a lot, just in the background with Michael Jordan. I don't know why, but it just makes me feel good. Anyway, let's get to the new movies this week, and the big one is from Jordan Peele. It's Nope.
Nope, from writer-director Jordan Peele, starring Daniel Kaluuya, Keke Palmer, Michael Wincott, among others. Tells the story, and I'm going to try and I don't want to spoil anything, but not that I don't think I could spoil anything, because this movie is so brilliantly unusual. It's just yet another signal of the genius of Jordan Peele. The story goes that this family runs a horse farm in Hollywood. They supply horses for Hollywood movies. They're not getting as much work lately. The father, played by Keith David, is killed early on in a very strange way. And we'll come to understand how that happened as the movie goes on. This leaves Daniel Kaluuya's character OJ behind, along with his sister, played by Keke Palmer, who have a complicated relationship. She's good. She's a good talker. He just wants to be with horses. That's really their dynamic. And so work again is becoming very tough. OJs tend to sell their horses then, mostly to a guy played by Stephen Yeun, who runs a Western themed tourist attraction not too far from where they live. He has a backstory where he was a child star on a television series where an ape went nuts and killed everybody but him, which is a great story. It's really just so cool. It actually feels like an entirely other movie that was made to go with Nope, and I would want to see that movie too on top of seeing this one. But that has some payoff a little later on as well. It really, just everything about this movie is so incredibly well structured, and it's reminiscent of so many great things, but it's so entirely Jordan Peele. But you can sense the influence of Spielberg with Jaws and Close Encounters kind of coming into it. You can certainly sense a lot up with the, I don't want to say gorier, but the bloodier elements, the little blood that there is, or the little, heavy creep show stuff that there is kind of reminiscent of John Carpenter in some ways. And so these wonderful influences coming together, kind of like the way Quentin Tarantino seems to soak up, other people's work and then create his own thing. And, he creates something that is completely different, that is completely Tarantino. That's kind of the way Jordan Peele seems to operate, is he takes in what others have done in the past and creates something wholly new, different, exciting, strange, and in this case, inexplicable. What I love about this one too is that if you want to, you can find meaning, like a deeper meaning. You could go in here and apply meaning to anything that you see in this movie. But I think for me, what this movie is, and I'm somebody who always reads deeper meanings into movies. It's kind of how we got started here, is me reading too much into various different movies. But I honestly think this one is just a straight ahead sort of monster movie, if you will, not to give away too much, but in terms of just the structure and the beats that are being played, this is kind of like a monster movie. And you can find deeper meaning, but you don't have to in order to enjoy this. And this is kind of him, Get Out was kind of a movie that was filled with symbolism and, from beginning to end. Us had a lot of symbolism in it, but it was a little bit more disjointed and a little bit more chaotic and exciting because it's so chaotic. This one is kind of sort of a perfection of a mainstream approach of a Jordan Peele movie, because he's given you a movie that if you want to read something into it, you can, but if you don't want to, if you just want to watch a monster movie, you're just watching a monster movie. And so it's kind of perfect in that way. I love this movie. I think it's phenomenal. There's a scene in this movie right at the very beginning where a shoe is standing on end and it has just this little drop of blood on it, and you just stare at it like, how is that? And it's just such a simple visual, but it's so unnerving. It starts the entire movie, and will it be explained? Who cares if it's explained? It's just set the movie off on this direction that's just going to keep you off balance the entire time. And I love that. I love what Jordan Peele does. This movie's fantastic.
Yes, prior to going to see it, I kind of read Jordan Peele talking about what he wanted to accomplish, and it was he wanted to get people back in theaters with a good old fashioned alien monster movie, and he reminiscent of like the 50s and something. That was kind of what he was trying to do. So that was kind of the approach I took into this movie. And let me give a little more backstory. I always bring my personal life into all my reviews, it's important because it affects my reviews. I'm moving this week, and so I'm working. I own a company, and I'm moving, and it's about ready to go back to school, and I've been literally found a little window to go see this movie in. Then I went in an empty theater. Both my wife and I are exhausted, super excited about this movie, and also trying to project what I think it should be or what it's going to be versus when I watch it. I like this movie a lot. I just don't love it. And I don't know if it's my mood. I also know a similar feeling to Get Out, where I'm like, I feel like I'm missing something, or I didn't go see opening weekend when I rewatched it. When I watched it for the first time on the video later on, I was like, it's good. And I felt like I was wrong, and I don't know why I was wrong. And then Us, I loved, but I also had literally had that happen to me where somebody came to my door like a week before at 3 a.m, and I lived out the first 30 minutes of that movie in real life. And this one, again, very cool, very original. That opening scene is amazing. And you're right, that side story, I kept finding myself wanting to see that movie more than the movie we're watching. That said, I do think, all the baggage I brought into the movie is probably affecting me, because at some points I felt a little on the bored side early on. Once it got going, bored's not the right word. I was expecting more of a mainstream action movie, but I forget Jordan Peele's a better director than Roland Emmerich, so I can't be. I should be expecting Independence Day, and instead, I should be watching the artistic versions of a mainstream movie, and I have nothing bad to say about it. It is very good, very original. Even if his influence was, like you said, the way you compare him to Tarantino is perfect. You can clearly tell he's got his influences, but it's so wholly Jordan Peele. And I don't know if I was just tired or what. There's times where I thought it dragged a little bit, but all in all, I thought the performances were fantastic. I thought the movie was really cool and original. I loved everything they did about it. And once it really got going, it brought me back into it. I struggled early on, but again, I was tired, and I'm just being honest. I feel bad. Like I know I'm wrong. I have nothing, I can't start an argument with you here. I don't have any basis of what's wrong with it. I just it was a little slow for me early on. But I don't know. And there's also, I'm not a huge Spielberg fan. And when you compare it to Spielberg, I could see that's very accurate. And I could see maybe some of the stuff that, obviously I love Jaws, but some of the other stuff, I like it okay, but I'm a casual fan at best, no more than that. So maybe I'm just not, I don't know. It's been a struggle because I want to love this like a lot of the other things, like an Ari Aster movie or a Tarantino, but I want to put it on that level, and I'm having a hard time doing that. bumming me out, if I'm being honest.
I am going to put it close to that level. That's for sure. It's not an Ari Aster movie, but I think this one easily ranks next to Get Out and Us. Like it's not even lesser. It may be as good or better than either one. In terms of accomplishment, even it's just so well accomplished. The ideas, the shock visuals, the unexpected laughs. The word "nope" in this movie gets a laugh every time they use it, and they don't overuse it. They use it maybe 3 or 4 times, but it gets a laugh every time. And it's the perfect tension breaker, because sometimes you just have to break the tension. Sometimes you just have to let people breathe for a second to set up an even bigger, something that's coming next. And that's certainly something that Jordan Peele does. But I mean, visuals, like I mentioned the shoe. There's also this woman who may have survived that monkey attack. There's a shot of Keith David's corpse that is haunting alongside the thing that may have killed him. It's like, wow, what happened here? There's a shot of a key. I won't say anything more about that, but that key stands out for sure. So many just smart little tiny visual choices that just set this movie apart. In terms of the monster movie stuff, there's just this clever little smart thing he does where he keeps setting these little rules and has his characters sort of suss them out. They're not making it up. They're not deciding this at the last minute. They're using visual evidence to determine the situation that they're in and how to deal with it. And I just loved that. These are very smart characters. They're very instinctual characters. They're not so smart that they're smarter than the movie that they're in, and that's a tough balance sometimes. They're not overly clever. I loved Daniel Kaluuya's approach to this. He felt like a real horse farmer. Like he just felt like this guy who only wants to spend his time with horses, and how this is desperately inconvenient to the time he could spend just sitting on a horse. It's such a specific feeling. He's so great at that. And Keke Palmer is on the other side of it. I love the way they play her character, because she's not. She is an LGBT character, but they never overplay that. They drop that in a little bit here, and a little, you just kind of sense it about her, about who she is. And it's just these little details. She's very charismatic. You add in Michael Wincott, who comes in late in the picture, and he's very, very funny and entertaining and odd. And yeah, just so good. Every choice in this movie is just so smart. I just, like I said, I adore this film because of the smart choices, and I thought the pacing was just about perfect for me, because just those little shocks were just enough to carry me through any part that's a little bit slower. I also love just those shifts to what happened in the past with that monkey. Had me on the edge of my seat every single time. The little reveals. You see someone's foot. You see people that look like corpses maybe sitting in the audience. You see just the little tiny details, and then you hear the monkey, and it's like listening for the shark in Jaws. But it's a monkey.
Like, I honestly thought, how like sometimes the Pixar movies has a little short in front of the movie. That's what I thought it was for a second. I was like,
in a way, yeah.
It comes back.
The way it starts, like well ahead of the credits, is so disjointed. It's very uncomfortable. I almost thought like the soundtrack had started too early or something.
Right. I thought maybe it was a different movie, and then he knocked me off of out of my comfort zone immediately, and maybe I needed to be in a comfort zone at that moment. Sometimes we're all viewing it differently, but other things that I thought he did well, like just the fact that he's named OJ, in a lesser movie, that's a lame joke. Mm-hmm. And Jordan Peele's made fun of those lesser movies on Key and Peele. So he does. It's just so subtle but perfect and fun, and I that works out well. Obviously, Keke Palmer gets a lot of the scene chewing role. Like, she probably had the most fun with her character, because it's clearly the most fun character of all of them. Stephen Yeun too. His character is kind of fun to go over the top with as well. But you're right. Those little subtle things, even the cat in the closet thing, the jump scare that lets you down easy. Even that was really well done, earned, and smart. Because I was like,
that barn scene with the lights.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Woo, that was good. That was good stuff.
And Yeah, I get why you would say there's enough of those scares to keep the pacing good for you, and I probably would have been fine at just being exhausted. I could go up and down really quick. It was, but I have nothing bad to say about it. It's just more of the experience, the mood I was in, and the experience I had bums me out, and I'm hoping it was just that and nothing else. And I can't even bring good conversation to what my problems are, which is a bummer. But as it got going, uh, even when they brought the director in at the end, and no, in another again in a lesser movie, that's the convenient character comes in and just knows how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But then you don't even use it. I don't know. They just what they do with him is really smart, and everything about it wasn't really anything I've ever seen before.
Mm-hmm.
While being influenced by things I have seen before. So I think that alone is an accomplishment, not to mention everything else he accomplished with this movie. I definitely recommend it. There's nothing, like I said, nothing you were saying I can argue with or disagree with. I just wasn't in the right mood for it. And that pisses me off because I've been looking forward to this movie since I saw the first trailer. Was it on the Super Bowl? I don't remember. It's been a while.
So. Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been every weekend since then too. But I loved it every time. Yeah, I don't know. You think they'll ever do it, Hags? I'd love to see more of that ape. Like,
I really would love to see that whole story play out.
I mean, it would be like like a Cujo type movie. It would be just quick. It wouldn't be long, but it would just be terrifying beginning to end.
80 minutes. I bet you can get 80 minutes out of that.
Yeah, just on the set. Yeah, that would be one hell of a freaky movie. Speaking of side projects, did you see they're doing a spinoff of X, the Ty West movie?
No, I didn't hear that.
They're doing like a prequel of, I think a trailer's dropping soon. A24 just announced it today. What's her name? Mia
Goth?
Yeah, her character is either a prequel or a sequel to I think it's the origin tale of her character. So I don't know.
Unusual. Okay.
Yeah. Which, maybe that means we'll get something from Nope. I don't know. But sometimes it's better just leaving it as is. What else do you want to talk about Nope-wise, or is that pretty much everything?
I think we covered just about everything I want to cover because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody in this. I just want people to go see this movie, which they did in a good number of the weekend, the highest grossing original movie in many years, which is great to hear.
Yeah, I wasn't an empty theater. However, I was on the side of town where nobody goes to the movie theaters. And there's 4 cities near us, and on Davenport, everything there's like it's hard to find seats. Moline, it was just like wherever you want to sit, go sit. I feel like going to Davenport better though, just couldn't work it out.
I honestly wonder if that theater is some kind of like scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme of some sort.
I mean, nobody works there.
He works there.
There's like one person there. If you try to get movie seats at the last minute, you're gonna be late to the movie, even with the 20 minutes of trailers. So thank God for the app. And I just refuse to buy into their monthly program because I don't know when it's gonna disappear.
Yeah.
And I'm the type of guy that'd be like 4 months later, I'm still paying for this shit.
Oh man, I've been going to Davenport all this time.
All right, but yeah, Nope. It's either amazing or just good. However, somewhere in between, or I'll probably more likely what Sean says, but definitely go see it as an original movie. That's awesome to see that it did that well. Where the Crawdads Sing.
Where the Crawdads Sing is a terrifically well-made movie. It stars a young woman whose name now would escape me, of course, as I would get to talk about this. But she lives in the swamp in North Carolina in the 1960s. She's grown up by herself because she had this abusive family. Her dad was abusive to her mom. Her mom left, and then each of her 4 their siblings sort of slipped out on their own and left to get away. And she decided to stay with her dad, played by Garrett Dillahunt, who as a drunk and abusive, but she kind of found a way to manage him. And in so doing, she also figured out how to live in this marsh by herself. In doing so, he eventually leaves when she's about 12 or 13 years old, and she really has to fend for herself. And that leads her to collecting these things called mussels, which is some sort of food item in the South that you get out of the ocean. She sells those to a very kind shop owner who then helps her out with, learning, teaches her math and such. And she grows up and becomes, very competent, astute young woman. She meets a boy when she's about 17 who teaches her to read, and he sees that she can draw. And you start to see her life sort of becoming clearer. Like she could become an illustrator or an artist and actually make money. And she's probably going to stay in this marsh because she doesn't like people, but that's at least she has a path forward for herself. Then something happens where another guy she meets several years down the road dies, and she ends up accused of his murder. The guy that she initially met and kind of fell in love with had gone off to college and had kind of disappeared on her. And when he comes back, there's a whole lot of tension there. And it turns into a murder mystery from there. And a lot of it proceeds from the courtroom with David Strathairn as her lawyer and her accused of this murder. And actually the murder stuff is kind of weak when you get down to it. The murder plot isn't particularly interesting. The resolution of it is outright laughable when you break it down. David Strathairn's very convincing, and it's all filmed really well, but I didn't buy into that aspect. The aspect I bought into was watching this woman learn how to live, this very young girl, learn to live in the marsh and grow up there, and the life that she develops for herself, seemingly against all odds, meeting boys and learning and becoming an author, actually selling a book and, actually leaving the marsh a little bit and coming back home to it. And it's a kind of a lovely story that way. And if it had just been this sort of romantic tale of this girl growing up and discovering a life while still maintaining the life that she loved, I would like that movie a lot better than this, crime thriller that they put in that is kind of weak sauce. It's like a bad episode of Law and Order. So the two movies don't really work well enough together for my taste for me to recommend this movie. I kind of recommend it, but not fully. I'm very much in the middle on it because the crime stuff, the trial stuff doesn't ruin the other movie. The other movie is strong enough and interesting enough to hold up against that. And so at least I can recommend half the movie.
It did sound good for a while until you got to the Law and Order part. It just seems like, it's based on a book, so it's probably one of those, I don't know, just summer reads that aren't very good that people love. I don't know. Maybe not. Mm-hmm. But it definitely sounded good. The first. I don't know why you can't just leave it like that, but
I think there's a certain. I think it's a kind of a beach read thing to begin with. I think the trial stuff gets kind of into an area where it wants to kind of give you a mainstream plot because it doesn't have enough confidence in the other plot. But of course, they're working from the book, so the book they've got to have the trial part because the trial part's probably in the book, I assume.
Oh, for sure.
So, but there's a much more confident movie would have been one that was, like an A24 style movie would have been made about the girl who grew up in the marsh and, learned how to live there and learned how to live in the world at the same time. And that's a much more interesting movie than the more mainstream Law and Order trial stuff.
Yeah. Although Fincher, he took a beach read and made a phenomenal movie out of it. So.
True. He did. Fincher didn't direct this, though.
That is true. All right. Alone Together.
Alone Together stars Katie Holmes, Jim Sturgis, and Derek Luke in the story of a woman who's a New York Times food critic just at the start of the COVID pandemic when it was really beginning to take hold in New York City. She is put on essentially leave by the New York Times because, restaurants are closing. So she and her boyfriend, played by Derek Luke, are going to hole out at this Airbnb out of town, however long they need to, while the pandemic is kind of raging in the city. She manages to get to the Airbnb, but it takes a while, and it does evoke a lot of the kind of fears and the anxiety that we all felt right at the start of the pandemic. Like, how am I going to get somewhere? How am I going to get resources? What if I need this? What if I need that? And that certainly does create an effective tension to start this movie. And then once she arrives at the Airbnb, she's found out that her boyfriend is not coming. His father has now gotten COVID-19, and he's decided to stay back in New York to be with his mom while dad is in the hospital, and they kind of hope for the best. And so she's out there alone in this Airbnb, or at least she thought she was, because when she goes to go in the place, Jim Sturgis is there, and he says that he's already rented it. And there, of course, we know where this is going. She gets invited inside, and it's not a thriller, so she's not going to get murdered or anything. This is going to be a pandemic romance. These two people who don't know each other, don't have much in common, get locked in the same place for a lengthy period of time and begin to discover each other. Not an entirely original idea, but it works here because it does use the pandemic well as that sort of background. And the chemistry between Katie Holmes and Jim Sturgis is the key here. You're not reinventing the wheel romantically. You need to create characters who are going to make those things that we're so familiar with more interesting, and that's what they do. I like these two characters, and I liked where their romance developed and went to. She doesn't screw around too much with the idea of, well, I'm cheating on my fiance boyfriend. She pretty much breaks up with him at a certain point in the movie so that she can pursue this, because she knows that this is really good. And so the movie does still carry the tension of like, well, when the boyfriend, maybe he's going to probably decide to come and see her regardless because she broke up with him. He's still probably going to try and get involved here somehow and try and convince her to come home or something. So there's still the tension of him showing up versus, the romance that's developing and other secrets that are out there. And of course, family members back in the city one of whom gets sick and passes away, and leads to other, elements of this movie that really make it very resonant. I enjoy this movie a lot. I think Katie Holmes is a pretty good director. This is her second full-length feature, and she's got a strong command of what she wants to do. She knows that she's not reinventing the way to tell this kind of story or reinventing the way you tell romantic stories. She leans into the stuff that about romance and movies, and does so very well. Like I said, the key is not necessarily avoiding the familiar stuff. It's doing the familiar stuff as well as it can possibly be done. And I think this movie does that. It takes romance and with these two specific characters and these two specific actors and does it about as well as can be done. And for that, I can't say, I can't sit here and blame it for being unoriginal or something. Because again, that's the kind of a silly way of looking at it, and that every romance is derivative or so what it's about chemistry, and those two have chemistry, and the incidents that she puts them together with in the movie to develop the story are strong enough to get past the overly familiar elements. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed this movie. It's not a perfect movie, it's not a great movie, but for what it is a pandemic romance, as a kind of a beach read pandemic romance, if you will, it's quite good.
Awesome. Yeah, I believe it comes out available to rent next week if I was looking at everything right. So if you want to see that, go check it out on Amazon, iTunes, and wherever you watch movies. I'm really curious about this next one. I have watched it, but I'm here. You have to say first. The Gray Man on Netflix. Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas.
And directed by Anthony and Joe Russo, the team behind The Avengers and Captain America. This is the story of a CIA agent who was recruited from prison. He was supposed to spend the rest of his life in prison, but Billy Bob Thornton, the head of the CIA, gets him out and puts him out in the field. And him and several other of these guys who are in this similar profession are guys with not many attachments and not many, nobody really will care if they die, kind of thing, kind of a Suicide Squad idea. But on their own, nobody else with them. Right. He ends up having this mission at the very beginning that goes kind of wrong, but he ends up finishing it, and then the guy he kills gives him a piece of information that's going to lead him back to potentially being killed himself by his own people. He manages to get out of that, but of course the new head of the CIA doesn't want him alive and also wants the evidence that he found, so he sends Chris Evans after him, who is this contractor who doesn't work for the CIA, but kind of sort of works for the CIA. He works outside he's a criminal. He's a sociopath. He's a weirdo. He murders a lot of people. Uh, and the dynamic is there. Ryan Gosling is on the run trying to get away, and Chris Evans is chasing after him using any means necessary, destroying buildings, blowing up anything, shooting and killing a lot of people. I should hate this, but then it started reminding me of Fast and the Furious, and thinking of Fast and the Furious made me love this a lot. I really had a great time. It's such a violent, ludicrous, over the top movie, but you've got two really great movie stars in it who are just awesome at doing what they do. You've got Ana de Armas, who is amazing in this movie and filling in the role exactly as she's needed. The Russo brothers just are so great with their camera work, and the camera work and cinematography in this movie. It's like putting really high level professionalism into a Fast and Furious movie. Like, it's like I know you're probably kind of wasting money here to being this nice to this material, but it worked on me. I loved the way they used their moving camera, and I loved the incidents that they came up with, and the look of the movie. The coloring, the sun, the way they use sunlight is great. A lot of great things in terms of the look of this movie. It's silly, over the top violence, though. It really comes back around with big chase scenes and shootouts and lots of people being killed, and just no regard whatsoever for science or reality or any of that kind of nonsense. We don't, that physics, who needs it? Uh, this is a Fast and the Furious movie, but made by the Russo brothers with Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans. And for me, that worked. I enjoyed this movie a lot.
It didn't, and I'm different, coming from a different angle. I have a lot going on. I'm tired. I thought it was 30 minutes too long. And I was getting more Red Notice vibes, where I'm just like, these guys all feel like they're doing their own thing, and it's not meshing well together. But again, that's how it felt to me. Whether that's the truth or not, I don't know. I thought Chris Evans was so over the top that it was distracting, and I suppose that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't necessarily think it was good. I just thought it was almost like a Scooby-Doo villain that's really violent. It's kind of how it appeared to be. Ryan Gosling, I mean, it's impossible not to like him. He just is. He's basically playing Ryan Gosling. So he's the best part. I just maybe, I don't know. You have all these big time actors in it. I just didn't feel like they were working together. It was like they filmed everything individually and then tried to edit the movie together. Whether I'm right or not, I don't know. That's how it felt to me.
Yeah. There are plot holes. Like, why does Ana de Armas has a chance to kill Chris Evans and doesn't for some reason? Just instead knocks him out. Like, just kill the guy. He's the most dangerous guy here. But that aside, I think the reason this isn't Red Notice is because The Rock and Ryan Reynolds are essentially playing the same character in that movie with the same dialogue, completely undifferentiated, whereas Ryan Gosling is an entirely different energy than what Chris Evans is. And Chris Evans also gets to be the over the top villain. Ana de Armas kind of gets the short end of the stick, but at the very least, they give her a lot of big action to do as opposed to character stuff. But I just love everything that Ryan Gosling does in this movie. I love just the way that they kind of make him part John Wick, part John Wick. Just do a lot of stuff like that it just is a lot of fun. It's derivative, absolutely heavily derivative, but again, it's done in such a way that is so professional and just smart in terms of the crafting of it. So the craftsmanship is there, the action is explosive and exciting, the pacing is almost nonstop once it does get going. I love Billy Bob Thornton and Alfre Woodard, who basically play the same characters and die the same death, which is kind of funny in a way. I dig it. I dug the silliness of it. I dug the fact that they even had the one of the dumbest sequel teases I've ever seen. I loved the stupid of this movie. It made me happy.
I mean, and here's how much sense I'm making today. Nope, I'm like wanting it to be more like a Roland Emmerich movie, and here I'm saying it's too stupid to be good. So I'm making no sense at all. I will say, whenever Ryan Gosling wasn't on the screen, I wanted to turn it off. Like, I wanted to. I would, if it was like he was in every frame. Mm-hmm. I maybe it would have been different. I don't know. I like charismatic, cool heroes who are just carry everything they do is just cool. You know, Martin Riggs, that kind of like character, you know, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, those type. You know, not even Kill, but just entered. You know, Robert Downey Jr. does it well. Ryan Gosling always does it great, and I loved every second he was on screen. Chris Evans annoyed me, and I know what he was going for, and it felt like he was missing, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's working.
I think honestly, we feel the exact same way about this movie. It's just that you didn't enjoy it, and I did.
It's like, I want to save this time for, you know, when I'm at home and watch shit that doesn't matter. I want to waste on TV shows, not movies. I almost watched this next one, Persuasion, but my wife said I wouldn't like it, so I didn't. I
didn't actually get to it. I'm sorry.
Awesome, sweet. So,
I meant to watch it.
I can call her in and she can talk about it.
That's a good idea. Let's do that.
Let's not do that. Let's move on to our undisputed classic, which I believe, I'm curious as to why you picked it, because you told me not to look anything up, and I think I know why. And then I think you were also disappointed with how it wasn't what you were hoping it would be. But anyway, wrong is right.
Well, you read the description of this one on what is it, Wikipedia, and it sounds really, 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 really crazy. And I'm like, that's awesome. I want to see a really stupid, crazy movie that I've never heard of before with Sean Connery. Then you watch it and it's like, oh, this is really conventional. This is like not crazy at all, really. It wants to be, but it's not. I picked this because it's got kind of a CIA angle with it, which The Gray Man is a CIA movie, so that's the connection there. But Sean Connery stars as a TV reporter who is in the Middle East. He's the most well-known reporter in the world. He goes around the world. He reports the nightly news as well. Cronkite, but with a touch of like Arthur Kent, the Scud stud from the 92 Iraq War. Just kind of all over the place. Him, and he knows everybody and knows all the secrets and stuff. And he's friends with the president. That's the level of that's a level of celebrity that he is. And initially, you think that this is going to be a media send up, or is it a send up of the war? And then for a while, just things happen that are very serious, and the movie appears to be very serious. And like just whoever directed this just has no idea what they're doing with the tone of this movie, because clearly whoever wrote this is a very dark satire of both media culture and political culture that would resonate today pretty well with the idea of people making calculated choices based on politics. Even the people in the Middle East are making calculated choices based on how that's reported by the media. Like, there's ideas there that are very dark and very satirical and could earn some very dark laughs, not unlike a Three Kings or something like that. They have a similar idea. A director who could probably do something like this very, very well, and then David O. Russell. But this director just at times it's like he's directing a television drama, and then when he tries to make the turn at the end into high-level satire, it just doesn't work, and it makes these just bizarre choices. I'm trying to think of how to describe this plot. There's multiple different people in the Middle East, one of whom gets assassinated. The other one gets kind of blamed for the assassination, but also blames America for the assassination. Then you've got the president in an election year running against Leslie Nielsen, who keeps, who's playing a Texan and something about Texas and all this stuff about Texas for some reason. Then you've got Sean Connery, who, again, at times is playing this very, very straight and he's being very charismatic and interesting, because Sean Connery is very charismatic and interesting. But what is his character actually doing other than witnessing a lot of this stuff? And not much is coming of that. It's really weird. And one of the things that stood out in the Wikipedia article that I read that made me kind of go, well, I want to see this, is the idea that there were nuclear weapons on top of the World Trade Center, which is not something that happens in this movie. There aren't nuclear weapons on top of the World Trade Center. They're like, that sounds like it could be very subversive and interesting in this day and age post 9/11. But no, this is just, there was just nothing to it. Nothing happened with that.
Well, let's pause there, because this should have been very interesting because
absolutely.
There's supposed to be nuclear weapons on top of the World Trade Center. Turns out there's not, but they use those non-weapons to go to war. So all this stuff really happened, and it still is not. I mean, not that it was on top of the World Trade Center, but there's things that happen
around. The
fake
nuclear weapons were up there that are used as motivation to send us to war against the Middle East.
Right.
Which is based off of like a right-wing think tank memo that came out about 4 years before this movie existed. That's the truth. 1978, I believe it was, where guys like Rumsfeld, Cheney, a whole bunch of guys like that, a whole bunch of think tank guys who ended up in both Bush administrations, wrote a think piece for this think tank about how they would get us to war in the Middle East. And it kind of plays along exactly like this, with the idea that they could, if they, not that they were going to fake evidence, but the evidence that they needed would have to happen in a particular way. And this movie is seemingly based on that, but it doesn't understand that is both darkly comic and hilarious and terrifying at the same time. And it can't find the tone to make that work.
It ends up just being bland.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it like part of it wants to be Doctor Strange Love, another part. I mean, some of the other movies I was going to say it wants to be came out well after this, but it just, like you said, it can't find its tone. Under the right direction, I think it could be a pretty amazing movie that pisses you off, something like Kubrick or David O. Russell, even Adam McKay, some of the movies he's done recently could have made this work. I kept waiting for, because I didn't look anything up till afterwards. And then I'm like, okay, that's why he did it. Because this is just like the 9/11 and what happened with the weapons of mass destruction and not really being there. But it was just kind of like, he's not going to like this. It's not bad enough to be fun bad. And it's certainly not good enough to be good. I mean, it's just kind of ends up just being forgettable in a movie where Sean Connery is not playing a Sean Connery-like role. This isn't, I don't know. It just really, and Leslie Nielsen isn't even like distracting because later on he goes on to be the Naked Gun guy. He's playing it straight and it's not weird. It's just kind of there, just bland is the only thing I can really come up with this movie. It really should be much more than it is. And quite frankly, if it was much more, we probably would have heard about it.
Yeah, good point. This needed an entirely different director. I think the script is there, but this director didn't know how to get to extract the points that were needed to make it work.
Absolutely. It's 100% on point. We've missed a couple weeks of 92, so I'll just read what came out. If you want to stop me for any of them, let me know. Comrades of Summer.
No.
Revenge of the Nerds 3.
Ugh, gross.
Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
No.
Man Trouble.
No.
A Stranger Among Us.
No.
Mistress.
No, it doesn't sound familiar.
Mo Money.
Mo Money. Oh, is that the Damon Wayans one?
Yes.
Yeah. That's all right.
That's all right. And then Mom and Dad Save the World.
Yeah. Boo.
Yeah, that's what we have to work with. Let's see what's next week. I forgot to write it down. We got Super Pets, Vengeance, and then Marcel something or other. It's really long.
Marcel the Shell with Shoes On.
Yes.
One of the most anticipated movies of the year, honestly.
I've loved the trailer of it. Hopefully I can get to see that one this weekend. I will be moving, so we'll see. Unless you have a classic off the top of your head, we don't have one as far as I
don't have one yet, but I've already seen Vengeance, and I already know that it's one that everybody should see for sure. It's I'm going to try and think of something along the lines of that film.
Excellent. In 1992, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Death Becomes Her, and Enchanted April came out. All right, let's move on to Flip Chart before we wrap up the show. We will start with Dante's Peak and Taken.
Let's see. The movie where they drive a truck or they drive a Jeep on lava, or the movie where Liam Neeson is supposed to be able to beat up guys. We would take Taken.
Yeah, he could beat up somebody, I'm sure. It'd be cool if the movies were in the same universe. Romeo and Juliet, 1996, or Logan's Run.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. Jesus. Beethoven, 1992, or Leaving Las Vegas.
What if they crossed these two movies? Leaving Las Vegas. Is it the super drunk dog trying to drink itself to death, sadly?
As a prostitute just trying to show it love. Make it feel wanted.
Charles Grodin's just fending off her advances.
No, Nicolas Cage plays the Charles Grodin character. All right, Rocky 3 or Blue Velvet?
I'd like Rocky 3 to punch Blue Velvet. Rocky 3, actually. I would take that over Blue Velvet. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, if it was... The more and more I like Kubrick, I can defend some of those weird ones like Clockwork Orange. It's harder and harder to defend the David Lynch ones just because some of them are so bad. And that one, I want to like it so much, but it's just really like not okay at times. Like just messed up for no.
I think you can defend. I think it's easier to defend Lynch just because he is at least ambitious in everything that he does. He takes a big swing, and that alone makes me like a lot of what he does. But that movie just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, and he's not. There are certain guys like Kubrick can't miss and Tarantino can't miss when they take a big swing. They just hit it out of the park every time. But so I mean, I guess you're right there. I don't know. This is a tough one. Mighty Ducks 3 or The People versus Larry Flynt?
The People versus Larry Flynt.
Yes. Hot Shots Part Duh or Thelma and Louise?
Dang it. I don't know which way to go. I know Thelma and Louise is way better, but Hot Shots is very funny. Thelma and Louise. I'm going to do the right thing this time.
Yeah, if it were...
the original Hot Shots, it'd be a little harder.
And if it were a slightly less movie, I could probably go Hot Shots, but Thelma and Louise is a pretty good one. The Ugly Truth or Under Siege? This is like your worst nightmare.
And no, actually, Under Siege is way better than The Ugly Truth. Just because Tommy Lee Jones takes a knife right through his skull. That really, not that I hate Tommy Lee Jones, I just like the visual of a guy taking a knife right through the skull.
That is true. That is the most watchable Seagal movie.
Yeah, by far.
Swingers, Zandy's Bride.
Never seen Zandy's Bride.
Swingers or Popeye?
Swingers.
Great. The Count of Monte Cristo, The Karate Kid.
Karate Kid.
Yes. Scary Movie 3, The Last Action Hero.
Last Action Hero. Last Action Hero is really watchable. Like,
never seen it.
Everybody keeps saying how terrible it is, and it's not a good movie. It comes up short, but I find it to be, when I watch it, to be very watchable. Like it breezes by.
Hopefully we're not doing anything next year when it comes out, when it turns 30, because I haven't actually seen it yet. So I need a reason to watch it. I'd like to
get your reaction to that one. That would be interesting.
I love the soundtrack. I have that. Black Swan or Castaway?
Black Swan.
Yeah. The Lego movie, Lego Batman.
That's tough, man. I'm going to say Lego movie.
Yeah. Lego Batman, just a little bit too goofy if you're going to compare the two. But I love them both. The English Patient or On the Waterfront?
On the Waterfront. 6 hours shorter, so I appreciate it.
Double Jeopardy, Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit.
Double Jeopardy is just incredibly watchable. Again, it's cheesy and cheap, but it works.
Yeah. Dirty Dancing, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, 95.
Dirty Dancing by a lot.
Yes. The Happening, Batman Returns.
The only Batman movie I truly hate versus The Happening. No, it's Batman Returns. Yeah, The Happening is just yeah.
That's so much fun to talk about, though. I love. It's not fun to watch. It's fun to deconstruct.
Yeah.
Texas and Chainsaw Massacre 2003 or Last of the Mohicans.
Let's see. Terrible versus Up Its Own Ass. Give me Terrible. I'll take Terrible over Up Its Own Ass.
Holy shit, you went with Last of the Mohicans. I didn't know Michael Mann did Last of the Mohicans. I didn't think he was capable of making a movie up his ass. I thought he was just a surface level guy.
I think it's Daniel Day-Lewis, but mostly he was up his own ass.
Well, I'm sure he's gone there to find roles before. Jurassic World. Maybe he lives there. Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
Yes. The Family Man, Johnny Mnemonic.
Ooh. Family Man. Yeah. Nicolas Cage. Why not?
When all else fails. The Karate Kid 2010 or Marley and Me.
Marley and Me. Marley and Me is actually a good movie. I always marvel at that fact.
Kung Fu Panda 2, the Rugrats movie.
Kung Fu Panda. I never want to see anything Rugrats related again in my life.
Why is that?
It's garbage. It's absolute trash. The animation is terrible. The characters are just miserable to watch. Just incredibly unfunny. Sorry for your childhood.
Talking
to the audience. I don't know about. I don't know if you ever watched that shit.
I mean, I'm just slightly too old for it. Yeah. I mean, it was on. My sister watched it. I didn't hate it, but I definitely don't have any loyalty to it. Commando, To the Left of the Father.
Not seen that one.
It's an interesting title, I guess.
Oof.
Commando, Bicentennial Man.
Oh, it's Commando. Yeah, Bicentennial Man is unwatchable.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
I'm not making you do that one. Yes. The English Patient, I Heart Huckabees.
I Heart Huckabees, absolutely.
White Men Can't Jump, Bad Taste.
White Man Can't Jump. Bad Taste is not easy to watch.
Yeah, I'm probably going to watch White Men Can't Jump. I want to defend Peter Jackson, although I don't really like a whole lot of what he does. But I did like that era better, but it's still, I don't go back to it ever, so.
Yeah.
Coyote Ugly, Goodfellas.
Goodfellas.
Yes. Octopussy, Minnie the Moocher.
That's a short.
Octopussy, Batman Forever.
Batman Forever.
Yes. Doc Hollywood, Annie Hall.
Annie Hall.
Grumpy Old Men, All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Grumpy Old Men. That movie's hilarious.
Yes, it is. The Wrong Man, Intentions of Murder.
Gosh, I got to see both of those films, honestly.
You haven't seen either one?
I don't think I've seen The Wrong Man. I'm not sure which. I don't recognize that trailer, I guess. No, I have not seen that one, no. So I've not seen either of those movies, but I want to. I want to see both of them. Matchstick
Men, Platoon.
Matchstick Men. I just don't care for Platoon. I don't care for anything Oliver Stone does.
That's all I like that he does. He won the flip.
Yes.
I don't dislike Matchstick Men. Boogie Nights, Snake Eyes.
Boogie Nights, but it's closer than it ever was before.
Yes. Professional, The Sum of All Fears.
Professional. Sum of All Fears isn't any good, unfortunately. I read my review and now I realize that I might have said otherwise earlier. I don't know. I found a review this week. I just to stop for a second. For SeanAtTheMovies.blogspot, the place where I'm posting all my old archive reviews, and I found a movie that I swear to God, I think it's called Johnny's Show. It's got Ethan Hawke and Frank Whaley, and I have zero memory of this movie. Like, I have no idea that this movie ever existed. And apparently I wrote about it in 2001. So I didn't like it. I didn't dislike it. I was very middle of the road on it. Frank Whaley apparently plays a very bad comedian. Ethan Hawke has a role so small that I barely mentioned it. But yeah, I can't like, oftentimes when I'm putting these things up, I can flash to some sort of visual that I remember from the movie. Like, there Alamo, I can remember a shot of Billy Bob Thornton on his horse. Like I can remember stuff like that. That comes to mind immediately. That movie, zero. I retained nothing of that film.
Are you still having fun going backwards, or
it's so great?
You mentioned that it's kind of fucks with you a little bit.
Oh, it does. It's like well, oftentimes, a lot of times, like I'd be just embarrassed that I wrote something the way I wrote it, or which is happening less and less, which is nice. I'm finding a lot that that does remind me of me, which is good. I do find occasionally that I liked a movie that I didn't know I liked, and that's kind of been interesting. But yeah, you definitely learn a lot about yourself when you're looking back at things you wrote, 20 years ago.
It self-storage.
Never heard of self-storage.
Go check your blog. Make sure you haven't. That one's probably too new. What about Terry?
No. Doesn't look familiar.
It or Big?
Ooh, that's tough. That is tough. Big.
If It 2 hadn't come out and been so bad.
Yeah, it kind of dragged it down a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, which I know it's stupid to blame sequel for blame the original for the sequel, but it definitely tore it apart a little bit.
I get the instinct.
The Imitation Game, The Great Muppet Caper.
The Great Muppet Caper. Imitation Game should have been a lot better than it was.
Yeah. Frozen Willow.
Frozen.
Yeah, I wanted to watch Love Willow, but when we rewatched it, it wasn't.
I like
fair.
Willow, but
But we went and made it the classic or did the 30 years, and it definitely was a bummer. Just Ron Howard. Just everything he does. Saving Mr. Banks, Daniel Isn't Real.
Daniel Isn't Real looks so interesting. I don't think I've seen it, but a great poster. I want to see it.
No
based off
fucking
of the
shit.
Let's make that the classic next week.
Nothing else, let's watch it.
Yeah, why not?
I hope it's awesome.
The great poster. So, I mean, I want to see it now.
It has like a Mandy vibe mixed with kind of an A24 look. I don't know.
And the title is just fascinating. Daniel Isn't Real. Who the fuck is Daniel? I want to know now.
Yes, I'm gonna make sure. I'm gonna type it here in the notes real quick. Where is next week? Put it here just for shits and giggles. All right. So good. Saving Mr. Banks, Home Alone. What is it? I don't know what Mr. Banks is.
Oh, you don't? It's Tom Hanks and Emma Thompson, the creation of the movie Mary Poppins.
I may not have watched that one. Which one do you like?
Home Alone's fine.
Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, March of the Penguins.
Harry Potter for me.
The Music Man, 12 Monkeys.
That's the 2003 Music Man. I've only seen the original.
All right. Time Cop, 12 Monkeys.
Oh, you're making it so hard. Time Cop. Time Cop's the greatest guilty pleasure movie for me. It's so dumb, but so much fun and so watchable. But 12 Monkeys is like, that's real. That's an actual movie.
Yeah. Agreed. I loved Time Cop as a kid. That was just so one to watch on repeat. Back to the Future, the whole 9 yards.
Back to the Future.
Yeah. Kingsmen, The Secret Service, Nighthawks.
I have not actually seen Nighthawks.
Really?
Yeah. Is it good?
Nighthawks is awesome.
Really?
I mean, let's not. I like Night. I'm also a Stallone fan. But it's kind of a fun early 80s movie that It's it's better than like Cobra and that level. It's like a step above those.
Interesting.
I'd say it's one of his better bad action movies, if that makes sense.
All right, we'll add it to the show next week.
No, we're good. Welcome to the Dollhouse, Ray.
Welcome to the Dollhouse. It's a lot of recency bias, though.
Well, yeah, but Ray.
Ray's kind of, yeah.
All the performance, no movie. The Majestic, Saw 4.
Saw 4.
Yes. Interstellar, Mr. Holland's Opus.
Interstellar.
Woohoo!
Oh, man.
All right, that's the end of the show. See you next week. I might just end it on a coin flip. All right.
Good luck.
To you later.
Hope it goes well.
Thank you.
See ya.
All right, see you.